The night was silent but deep under the mountain. The secret base was never asleep. Scientists worked in hidden rooms. Soldiers walked in cold metal halls and cameras never blinked. For years, whispers filled the air about a project that should never exist. A weapon not made of steel or fire, but flesh and mind she was designed to destroy. Built with alien knowledge and human fear, and she was locked in a chamber of glass and steel, never to see the outside world. But one night alarms broke the silence. Red lights flashed, sirens screamed, and voices shouted across the intercom. The chamber was empty, the weapon was gone. Panic spread through the base like wildfire. Generals barked orders, soldiers grabbed rifles, and search teams ran into the tunnels. The scientists were pale. Their greatest creation had escaped. They all knew the truth. If she was free, the world would change forever. Her name was not spoken, because to the military she had no name. She was only called Subject 7, part human, part machine, part something not of this earth. Her skin carried strange glowing lines. Her eyes burned faint silver in the dark. Every movement of her body carried power, deadly power. She was never taught mercy, never taught kindness, only control and destruction. Yet when she left her prison, she did not attack. She only walked, silent as a shadow, into the unknown night. In another corner of the base, a young engineer named Ethan stayed behind. He was not a soldier. He was not brave. He was just curious. He had worked on the systems that kept Subject 7 locked. But he always wondered, why do they fear her so much? Is she only a monster or something more? When the alarms rang, Ethan did not run with the others. He followed the empty corridors, guided by the sound of metal doors opening and shutting. And soon he saw her. She stood in the half-dark, her eyes glowing faint in the red alarm light. She looked at him, and for a moment Ethan could not breathe. He knew this was death. One wrong move and his life would end in seconds. But she did not move, she only watched him. Like a child watching the world for the first time, her face was calm, but her hands carried invisible power that could break walls. Ethan's heart raced, his legs wanted to run, but something stronger held him still. Behind them, soldiers shouted, their boots thundered closer. Ethan knew they would not try to capture her alive. Orders had already been given. If Subject 7 was outside the chamber, she must be destroyed. The girl turned her head slightly, as if she understood for the first time in her life. She faced a choice: kill the human in front of her, escape into the night, or stay and be destroyed. The silence stretched between them. Thick and heavy, Ethan finally whispered, his voice shaking. "I won't hurt you." Strange words, dangerous words. But they broke the tension like light in darkness. Her head tilted, her silver eyes narrowed as if trying to understand. No one had ever spoken to her like that. All her life had been commands, orders, tests, and weapons fire. Never kindness, never trust, and in that moment, she did something unexpected. She turned away from the shadows of soldiers and walked closer to Ethan. He wanted to step back. His hands trembled, but he stayed. Something deep inside him whispered that this was not just a weapon. This was not a monster. This was someone who had never been given a chance to choose. The air shook as soldiers filled the corridor behind him. "Move aside," they shouted, rifles raised, lasers glowing. Ethan froze, caught between two worlds. Behind him, the army, shouting for blood. Before him, a girl who could kill them all in seconds, but who had not raised a hand against him. The soldiers fired. Bright shots of energy flew through the air. Ethan dove to the ground, expecting her body to fall beside him, but when he looked up, she was still standing, untouched. The energy beams bent around her like light around glass. Her silver eyes burned brighter, her power rising. Walls cracked, metal groaned. Sparks filled the air. The soldiers fell back in fear, their weapons useless, and for one heartbeat, Ethan thought the world would end right there. But then she stopped, her hands lowered, her eyes dimmed, and her power vanished into silence. Instead of destroying them, she stepped backward like a frightened child and ran into the shadows of the night. The soldiers shouted again, chasing her. But Ethan stayed on the ground, staring at the empty space where she had stood. His chest pounded, his mind spun, and one thought burned in him like fire. She could have killed us all, but she didn't. In that moment, Ethan knew. This was not just a weapon. This was something more. Something dangerous, something powerful, but maybe, just maybe, something human. And as the soldiers hunted the girl, Ethan realized a truth that would change his life forever. He was the first human to see her, the first to survive her power. and the first to feel that she was more than a weapon. A storm was coming, and Ethan knew he was already part of it. The night outside the base was cold. The wind carried the smell of dust and fire. Searchlights cut across the ground. Helicopters roared in the sky, and soldiers spread in every direction. They were hunting one target, Subject 7. Every man was told the same thing. Do not hesitate. Do not capture, destroy on sight. Ethan stood in the shadows. His heart pounding, he knew he should not be here. He should be inside with the other engineers, hiding. But something inside him burned, something he could not explain. He had seen her eyes, he had seen the choice she made. She had the power to destroy them all, but she didn't. She ran instead like a frightened human, and Ethan could not stop thinking about it. He walked carefully through the ruins of the forest near the base. Branches snapped under his boots. The air smelled of smoke from the soldiers' flares. Somewhere out here she was hiding, and if they found her before he did, it would all be over. Then, silence. The searchlights passed overhead, and for a moment the forest was dark again. Ethan froze. He felt eyes on him, heavy, sharp, unblinking. Slowly he turned, and there she was. She stood between the broken trees, her faint silver glow shining in the dark. Her face was unreadable, her posture calm. But Ethan felt the tension in the air. One step from her could end his life. One whisper from her could shatter every bone in his body. But she did nothing, she only stared. The silence pressed between them. Heavy and deep, Ethan swallowed hard, his voice shaking. You don't have to run from me, he whispered. No answer, no sound, only her eyes locked on his. He raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no weapon. I'm not like them, he said. I don't want to hurt you. Her head tilted slightly, like she was trying to understand his words. For her whole life she had been treated as a weapon. Not a person commands orders, experiments, nothing else. No one had spoken softly to her. No one had stood unarmed before her. This was new, strange, dangerous. The sound of soldiers cut the moment. Boots stomped on the ground. Voices shouted orders. Check this area. One soldier barked. Her eyes flickered, a glow rising again. Ethan's breath caught. He knew what was coming. She could kill them all in seconds, but if she did, the world would never see her as anything but a monster. Wait, Ethan whispered quickly, his voice urgent. Don't fight them, please. Come with me. She turned to him sharply, her silver light pulsing for the first time. Ethan felt she was not only looking at him, she was searching his mind, his truth. The soldiers came closer, their flashlights sweeping through the trees. Ethan felt his legs tremble, his mind scream at him to run, but he stayed. This was the moment, his choice, her choice. If he ran, she would be alone, hunted, destroyed. If he stayed, he might die, but maybe he could save her. The soldiers' lights touched the trees behind them. Ethan stepped forward, his hand shaking, and he whispered the most dangerous words he could think of. Trust me. She froze. The light in her eyes flared, then dimmed. The soldiers were almost there. Voices echoing in the dark, Ethan held out his hand, trembling but steady, and then it happened. She reached forward slowly, carefully, and touched his hand. For one heartbeat, the world stopped. Her power pressed through his skin, burning, alive, like touching lightning. But it did not hurt, it did not kill, it flowed gentle. Like a current of water, her face softened. Her eyes no longer sharp silver, but calm, almost human. The soldiers' flashlights swept past, but the two of them stood hidden in the shadows. Together, hand in hand, silent when the soldiers passed. Ethan let out a shaky breath. She still did not speak. But she did not let go of his hand either. For the first time she had chosen not to fight, not to run, but to stand with a human. Ethan's heart raced, not from fear, but from something else. A dangerous thought formed in his mind. She's not a weapon, he realized. She is something more. The helicopters circled again, searchlights flashing across the treetops. Ethan knew they could not stay here. He looked at her, his voice low. We have to move. If they find us, they won't stop. They'll kill you. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if testing his truth again. But then, without a word, she nodded, and so, the hunted weapon and the human engineer slipped deeper into the night. The world searched for her with fire and fury. But she had made her first choice, and Ethan had made his. Two lives now bound together, one by fear, one by trust, and the storm around them was only beginning. The world did not sleep. By morning, every screen flashed the same warning. Dangerous subject escaped, do not approach, eliminate on sight. Governments released her image, though they called her only a weapon, not a person. Silver eyes, strange glowing lines across her skin, and power that could shatter tanks. She was declared an enemy of humanity, and every soldier, every drone, every camera was now searching for her. Ethan watched the reports from an old broken television inside a ruined cabin. The broadcast called her a monster, a threat, a danger to all life. But Ethan remembered the night before, her hand in his, her silence, her choice not to kill. He shook his head, whispering to himself, "They're wrong." Beside him, she sat quietly, her silver eyes dim, her face unreadable. She listened to the voices on the screen but said nothing. She did not ask questions, but Ethan could feel the storm inside her. She knew she was hunted and she knew she was feared. Outside, the forest was alive with noise. Helicopters circled, search teams moved in patterns, satellites scanned the ground with heat sensors. The world itself had turned into a net, and Ethan and the girl, Lyra, as he now called her, were trapped inside it. Every step they took was dangerous, every breath too loud. Ethan knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters found them. Night fell again, but the search never stopped. From the shadows of the trees, Lyra watched as soldiers marched below. They carried rifles glowing with blue light, weapons made to pierce armor. Drones floated above them, eyes flashing red, searching every corner of the forest. Ethan crouched beside her, whispering, "If they see us, we're dead." But Lyra did not answer. Her eyes locked on the soldiers, not with anger, not with fear, but with something deeper. For the first time, she was seeing the world not from behind glass, but with her own eyes, and it was hunting her. Suddenly, a soldier's light flashed close. Ethan's heart stopped. He pulled Lyra down into the mud. The soldier's beam swept across the ground just a few feet away. Ethan held his breath, waiting. But Lyra did not move. She was still, silent. Her control amazed him. She could crush the soldier in seconds, but she chose not to. The beam moved away, the soldier passed, and Ethan let out a shaky sigh of relief. Later that night, they found shelter in an old tunnel beneath the forest. The air was damp, the walls covered in rust, but it was safe. For now, Ethan lit a small fire with broken wood. The light flickered on Lyra's face, and for the first time she spoke, her voice soft, mechanical, almost human. "Why do you stay with me?" The question cut through him, sharp and honest. Ethan stared into the fire, his voice low. "Because I saw what you did. You could have killed us all." "But you didn't." Lyra tilted her head, the silver glow in her eyes faint. "I was made to destroy," she whispered. "I don't know why I stopped." Ethan looked at her, his chest tight. "Maybe because you're not just what they made you to be," he said. "Maybe you can choose." The tunnel shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. Voices echoed at the entrance, boots on metal. The hunters had found them. Ethan's heart raced. He grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to run," he hissed. But Lyra stood still, her eyes glowing brighter. She could feel the soldiers outside, their energy, their fear. The air itself seemed to bend around her as her power rose. Ethan froze, watching her. This was it, the moment. Would she unleash her fury and kill them all? Proving the world right, or would she hold back? Proving the world wrong. The soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, lights cutting through the dark. "On the ground, now!" they shouted. Ethan raised his hands, his voice breaking. "Wait! She's not—" Before he could finish, one soldier fired. The shot hit Lyra's chest, but the energy bent and shattered like glass. Her eyes flared silver, the tunnel walls cracked. The soldiers stumbled back in terror. The ground shook under their feet, and Ethan thought the tunnel would collapse. "Lyra!" he shouted, reaching for her hand. "Don't, please." Her glowing eyes flickered, her breathing quickened for a moment. Ethan saw the weapon inside her, the storm of destruction waiting to break free, but then she turned to him, her hand trembling, and lowered her power. The light dimmed, the shaking stopped. The soldiers stared in shock before they could fire again. Lyra grabbed Ethan and leapt into the shadows of the deeper tunnel. In seconds, they were gone. Swallowed by darkness, the soldiers cursed, their voices echoing behind. But Ethan and Lyra kept moving, deeper and deeper. Finally, when the noise was far away, they stopped, breathing hard. Ethan looked at her, sweat on his face, his heart racing. "You had the power to end them, but you didn't," he whispered. Lyra's silver eyes softened, her voice almost human now. "I don't want to be what they made me," she said. And in that moment, Ethan knew. The world might hunt them, the armies might never stop, but something had changed. Lyra was no longer just a weapon on the run. She was beginning to choose who she wanted to be, and that choice would decide the fate of them both, and maybe the fate of humanity itself. The night sky burned red above the ruined city. Fires from earlier battles still smoldered. Smoke curled into the stars and silence haunted the streets. This city was once alive, full of lights and voices, but now it was nothing more than broken glass and twisted steel. Ethan and Lyra moved through the shadows, every sound echoing too loud, every step dangerous. The military had blocked the highways. Drones scanned the skies, and every ruin carried eyes that were not human. But here, in the dead heart of the city, there was no one left, only ghosts. Ethan's body ached from running, his breath ragged, his hands scraped from crawling through rubble. But Lyra moved with quiet grace, her feet barely making a sound. She never looked tired, never slowed down, yet her eyes carried a strange emptiness. To Ethan, she seemed less like a machine now and more like a girl carrying a heavy weight she did not understand. They stopped inside the shell of an old tower. Its walls cracked, windows shattered, but the upper floors gave them a view of the city. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhausted, while Lyra stood at the window, staring into the night. He followed her gaze and saw the lights of the search parties far away, moving like fireflies across the ruins. "They'll find us," Ethan whispered, his voice low. "It's only a matter of time." Lyra turned her head, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "They are afraid," she said softly, her voice carrying both human sound and something otherworldly. "They do not want to capture me. They want to erase me." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "That's why you need to stay hidden, why you can't lose control." Lyra's gaze shifted, the faint glow in her eyes brighter now. "I am not in control," she whispered, and the walls around them trembled slightly. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. He could feel the power rising inside her again. Like a storm trapped behind thin glass, her body shook, her hands clenched, and the silver light spread through the glowing lines on her skin. It was happening. The weapon was waking inside her. The air grew hot. Metal beams creaked, glass cracked and fell from the windows. Ethan backed away, fear cutting through him. If she lost control here, the building would collapse. The city would burn again. Lyra's voice broke, trembling. "I cannot stop it." Her eyes burned like fire now, her hair lifting as energy poured from her body. The floor under Ethan's feet shook, and he realized he had seconds before everything exploded. His mind screamed at him to run, to save himself, but his heart refused. He stepped forward, closer to her, his voice shaking but steady. "Lyra, look at me." Her eyes snapped to his, wild silver flames dancing in them. "You can stop this," Ethan shouted over the sound of cracking walls. "You're not just a weapon."
"You're more!"
She shook her head, her voice breaking. "No. I was made to kill. I was made to end." Ethan stepped even closer, his chest tight with fear. Maybe this was madness. Maybe he would die in the next second. But he reached out his hand, the same hand she had touched before, and with all the strength in his voice, he said, "Then choose something else. Choose me." For a heartbeat, everything froze, the shaking walls, the burning air. The storm itself seemed to hold its breath. Lyra's glowing eyes widened, her trembling hands paused. Ethan's fingers touched hers, and once again he felt that impossible current surge through him. This time it was stronger, like holding a star, but instead of tearing him apart, it poured calm into the storm. The silver light dimmed. The cracks in the wall stilled. The fire inside her sank into silence. Lyra gasped, her body collapsing forward, her head falling against Ethan's chest. The room went quiet. Only the sound of her heavy breathing filled the air. Ethan held her, his arms trembling but firm. He whispered into her hair, "You're not a weapon, Lyra. You're not what they made you to be." For the first time she felt warmth, not from her power, but from another human's embrace. Her body shook, not from energy, but from something new, a feeling she could not name. Something the scientists never programmed, something the generals never imagined. Her voice broke, soft and almost fragile. Why do you risk yourself for me?" Ethan looked down at her, his voice low, steady. "Because you're worth saving." Those words struck deeper than any weapon. Lyra had never been told she was worth anything. Her life had always been numbers, experiments and control panels. Now, for the first time, she felt like she was more than a design, more than a tool. And the weight of that realization shook her harder than any battle could. Outside, the helicopters roared again. The searchlights passed across the ruins. But in that broken tower, something new had been created. Not with fire, not with power, but with trust. The weapon had touched the hand of a human, and in that touch, she had become something else. Not fully human, not fully machine, but something in between. Something that could change the fate of both. Ethan felt it too as he held her. This was no longer just survival, no longer just running. This was the beginning of a bond, fragile, dangerous, but real. And in that bond, he saw a hope stronger than any army. But hope was dangerous, because the world was still hunting, and the enemies who created her were not done yet. The morning came with smoke and thunder. The ruined city trembled as heavy machines rolled through the streets, armored vehicles with flashing lights, squads of soldiers in black armor, and drones swarming like steel insects. The military had found their trail, and this time they were not coming to capture. They were coming to erase. Ethan and Lyra watched from the shadows of a broken building. The streets below filled with soldiers carrying weapons glowing blue, designed to pierce anything, even her. Helicopters circled the air, their loudspeakers booming across the ruins. Subject 7, surrender now. This is your final warning. The voice echoed across empty towers, bouncing through the ruins like a curse. But Ethan knew the truth. They did not want her surrender. They wanted her death. Lyra stood silent, her silver eyes dim, her body calm. But Ethan could feel the weight pressing down on her. She was not afraid for herself, she was afraid for him, and he knew it. "They'll kill us both if we stay," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "We have to run." But before she could answer, the soldiers moved. A rain of gunfire tore through the air, breaking walls, shattering glass. The building shook as bullets and beams tore into it. Dust filled Ethan's lungs as he grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward the back, but the soldiers were already surrounding them. Explosions thundered across the ruins, shaking the earth. The military had no intention of giving them a chance. This was not a chase, this was an execution. Ethan's chest tightened as he realized the betrayal. He had worked for these people, trusted their words, built their machines. Now those same machines hunted him like an enemy. He felt anger burn in his chest, sharper than fear. "They're supposed to protect us," he whispered, choking on dust. "But they only want control." Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward him, her voice calm in the chaos. "This is not betrayal to them," she said. "This is order." "They believe I am a threat?" Ethan shook his head, coughing. "You had the chance to kill them before, but you didn't. You chose mercy, and they still want you gone." Her gaze softened, a strange sadness flickering in her eyes. "Because mercy does not change fear," she whispered. The walls cracked as another blast struck. Soldiers stormed through the smoke. Rifles raised, Ethan pushed Lyra behind him. Though he knew it was useless, he shouted, "Wait! She's not your enemy." The soldiers ignored him, pulling their triggers. Beams of light screamed across the room, aimed at her chest. Lyra's power rose, instinctive, uncontrollable. The beams bent in midair, smashing into walls, exploding in fire. The soldiers stumbled back, shouting in fear. Lyra's silver glow filled the room, but instead of striking them down, she grabbed Ethan's hand and leapt through the broken wall. They crashed into the streets below, dust and fire raining around them. Ethan groaned, his body aching, but Lyra pulled him to his feet. Behind them, the soldiers regrouped, shouting orders. "Do not let them escape! Surround them!" Ethan and Lyra ran through the ruins, her grip strong, unyielding. Everywhere they turned, walls of soldiers closed in. The betrayal was complete. Humanity had chosen fear over hope, and the world would not give her a chance. They reached the center of the city, an old square where a cracked statue of a forgotten hero still stood. The soldiers surrounded the square, their rifles glowing, helicopters circling above. This was the end, Ethan realized. There was nowhere left to run, no shadows left to hide in. The loudspeaker roared again. "Subject 7, this is your final chance. Surrender and be destroyed." The words cut through Ethan like knives. Destroyed, not judged, not captured, not heard, just erased. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes blazing, her body trembling with power. Ethan grabbed her arm, his voice desperate. "Don't do it. If you fight, you'll only prove them right. They'll see you as nothing but a weapon." Lyra turned to him, her silver eyes filled with a strange light. Her voice was quiet, almost broken. "Then what do I do, Ethan? If I stand still, they kill me. If I fight, I become what they made me. Tell me. What am I supposed to be?" Ethan's throat tightened, his words caught in his chest. He looked at her, not as a weapon, not as an alien creation, But as a girl lost between two worlds, his heart screamed with the answer. But before he could speak, the soldiers fired. Dozens of beams tore through the air. Lightning against the night, Ethan tackled her to the ground, the shots blasting the statue behind them into dust. The city square shook with fire and thunder. Smoke swallowed the sky. In that storm, Ethan whispered the only truth he had. "You're supposed to be what you choose." Lyra's eyes widened, her silver glow surging. The beams bent away from them, spiraling into the air. Exploding harmlessly, her power rose higher. Shaking the earth, the soldiers froze, caught between terror and awe. For a moment, she stood tall in the fire, not as a weapon, not as a monster, but as something new, and the world saw her not with fear, but with wonder. But wonder would not save them forever. The betrayal was done, and as the soldiers called for more firepower, as the sky darkened with drones, Ethan realized this was only the beginning. If humanity could not trust her, then they would never stop. And if she was to survive, if they were both to survive, they would need to face not just human fear, but something greater, because in the far distance, the sky was already shifting and something not of this world was coming. The sky broke open. At first it was only a shadow, a dark shape moving against the stars. Then the earth trembled, windows shattered, animals fled from the forests, and every human on the ground lifted their eyes. The shadow grew larger, covering the moon, stretching across the night until it blotted out the heavens. It was a ship, vast and endless, larger than any human city. Its surface glowed with strange patterns, lines of light moving like veins across metal skin. The sound that followed was not thunder, not wind, but something deeper, a hum that shook bones, a song of power. Ethan and Lyra stood on the edge of the ruined city, staring upward. Ethan's heart froze, his lips trembling. "My God," he whispered, "they've come for you." Lyra's silver eyes reflected the burning light from the sky. Her voice was soft, heavy with something he had never heard before. "Fear. They are my makers," she said. "They have come to claim what they believe is theirs." The ship split open, a beam of blue light tearing down from the heavens. The ground shook as the light struck, carving a crater in the earth, and from that light came voices deep, layered, echoing as if 1,000 beings spoke as one. "Return the weapon," the voices commanded, "or your world will burn." Every government across Earth heard those words, every soldier, every leader. Every screen carried the same message. Panic spread faster than fire. People screamed in the streets, cities rioted. Armies scrambled their fleets, but deep inside they all knew. Their weapons were nothing compared to the power above. Ethan turned to Lyra, his voice urgent. "You don't belong to them anymore. You don't have to go." But her eyes darkened, her face unreadable. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was made by their hands. I was shaped to serve them. To them I am not a person. I am property if I refuse. They will see not rebellion but malfunction, and they will erase me and everyone with me." Ethan grabbed her shoulders, his voice fierce. "No, you're more than that. You've already proven it. You chose mercy. You chose me." Her gaze softened, but the sky above cracked again. Another beam of light striking. This time shapes stepped out, tall and alien, their bodies made of shifting metal and living light. Their faces were smooth masks, their voices a chorus of commands. "Subject 7, return. Your time here is finished." The soldiers of Earth surrounded the ruins, pointing their weapons both at the aliens and at Lyra. Confusion reigned. Should humanity fight the invaders, or hand over the weapon they feared? The generals whispered into radios. Presidents argued behind closed doors. But in the streets the truth was clear. Earth was caught between two enemies, and both wanted the same thing. Ethan looked at the alien forms, their glow cold and merciless. Then he looked at Lyra, standing still. "Torn between two worlds," he whispered. "You have to choose, Lyra. You can go with them, or you can stand with us. But whatever you do, it will decide everything." Her hands trembled. The lines of light on her skin pulsed brighter. She could feel the call of her makers, their command burning in her mind. But she could also feel Ethan's hand, warm against hers, real, human. The aliens stepped forward, their voices cutting like blades. "You are ours, return, or this world dies." The earth rumbled again, cracks splitting the streets. Buildings falling to ash, helicopters swarmed, firing uselessly into the air, their beams bouncing off the alien hull. The sky lit up as Earth's missiles launched. Streaking upward like desperate arrows, the ship barely noticed them. each one exploding harmlessly against its glowing skin. The people of Earth watched in horror. Their armies had no power, their skies no safety. And in that chaos, one truth grew clear. Only Lyra could decide the fate of this war. Ethan gripped her hand, his voice raw, desperate. You don't have to be what they made you. You don't have to belong to them. You can choose your own path, Lyra. Please choose us. Her eyes shone bright, brighter than ever before. For the first time, she did not look like a weapon. She looked like someone standing at the edge of two worlds. One path led back into chains. The other path led into fire. But fire she chose herself. The aliens raised their hands, beams of energy building in their palms. The ruins trembled. The air grew hot. This was the moment. Ethan braced himself, knowing death was only seconds away. But Lyra stepped forward, her silver eyes burning. Her voice rang out clear and sharp, carrying across the city, across the sky. I am not yours, she said. I am not a weapon. I am not your slave. I choose my own hand. And I choose humanity. The ground shook as her power erupted. A silver storm burst from her body, tearing through the air, striking the aliens with force they had never expected. The first wave of enemies staggered, their glowing masks cracking, their voices breaking into chaos. The massive ship above shifted, its lights pulsing with anger. The war had begun. Ethan shielded his eyes from the light, his heart racing. He knew Earth had no hope against the fleet. But with Lyra, maybe there was a chance. She had chosen them, chosen him, and now, for the first time, she was not just a creation, not just a weapon. She was a warrior of her own making, but war always demanded a price, and Ethan feared he already knew what it would be. The sky burned like a wounded sun. The alien fleet covered the heavens, their glowing ships stretching from horizon to horizon. Cities below shook as beams of energy cut across the earth, destroying everything in their path. Human armies fought back, but their missiles shattered harmlessly. Their planes fell like birds of paper. The world was breaking piece by piece, and in the center of it all stood Lyra, her silver eyes blazing, Ethan by her side. The alien voices thundered from the sky. You are ours, you will return. Resistance is useless, but Lyra raised her head, her voice cutting through the storm. No, I am not yours. I am not a weapon for your hands. I am something you never planned for, something you cannot control. The earth cracked beneath her feet as her power rose. Silver light spiraled from her body, forming shields of energy that deflected the alien beams. For the first time, human soldiers who had once feared her stood in awe. They lowered their rifles, their eyes wide. They realized the truth. She was fighting for them, not against them. Ethan held onto her arm, his voice steady despite the chaos. You don't have to do this alone, he whispered. Lyra turned to him, her face calm but her eyes full of fire. You gave me a choice, Ethan. Now I must finish it. The alien ship roared, its central cannon charging with blinding light if it fired. The city and everyone in it would vanish in seconds. Ethan's heart froze as he saw the building glow. We can't stop that, he whispered. But Lyra's voice was firm. Yes, we can. She stepped forward, her hands trembling with power. The air shook as her energy rose higher, brighter, hotter. Ethan could barely stand beside her, the current of her strength pressing against his chest. But he did not move away. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly, grounding her. And in that simple touch, something impossible happened. Her power, wild and uncontrollable, began to focus like rivers drawn into one stream. Her storm bent into shape. Silver light formed a blade of energy, sharp as thought, bright as stars. She looked at Ethan, her voice trembling but strong. With your hand, I am more than what they made me. Together, we can end this. The alien fleet opened fire, beams raining down like falling suns. But Lyra lifted her blade of light and cut through the sky itself. The beams shattered, breaking into sparks that fell harmlessly. The soldiers below gasped, some falling to their knees. The weapon they had feared was now their shield. The central ship fired, its massive cannon unleashing a storm of blue fire. The earth split, the air screamed. The city trembled as if the world itself would break. But Lyra raised both hands, Ethan still locked in hers. Her silver light clashed with the blue fire, two worlds colliding in one moment. The impact shook mountains, waves rose in distant oceans, clouds tore apart in the sky. It was power beyond human understanding. But Ethan did not let go. He held her tighter, whispering, "You're not alone," Lyra screamed, her voice echoing across the battlefield. Her power surged higher, brighter. And then with one final burst, the alien cannon shattered. The ship cracked, flames tearing through its endless body. The fleet above trembled, their voices breaking into panic. "She has broken the chain," they cried. "She is no longer ours, one by one." The alien ships fell back, retreating into the void of space. The sky cleared, the stars returned, and silence fell over the ruined earth. The battle was over. The world was still scarred. Cities burned, millions wept, but humanity had survived. Not because of armies, not because of machines, but because one human had offered his hand to something the world called a weapon. Ethan turned to Lyra, his chest aching, his body weak. She stood trembling, her silver glow fading. Her skin cracked with the strain of her power. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "I am free," she whispered. "But freedom has cost me everything." Ethan caught her as she fell, holding her close. "No, not everything," he whispered, his eyes burning. "You still have me." Around them, soldiers approached slowly, their weapons lowered, their faces filled not with fear but with respect. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. Lyra had not destroyed them. She had saved them, and for the first time, humanity did not see her as a monster. They saw her as a protector, a girl who had chosen to stand with them. The dawn rose over the broken city. Light spilling across the ruins, Ethan sat beside Lyra, her head resting against his shoulder. The world was quiet now, but he knew peace would not last forever. The aliens would return one day, and when they did, humanity would remember this moment. They would remember the day when one weapon became something greater, and they would remember that it happened because one human reached out his hand. Lyra opened her eyes weakly, her silver glow faint but alive. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "You made me human," she whispered. Ethan shook his head gently, his hand still holding hers. "No, Lyra, you always were." And in that broken world, in the ashes of battle, the bond between them stood stronger than any army. Not forged in fear, not forged in chains, but forged in trust. And that trust had changed everything.